Today we have Chaz Johnson, the co-founder of Thrive Development. Prior to founding Thrive, Chaz spent time with Rimrock Construction and Rockworth companies. Thrive is a prominent developer here across the Wasatch Front and beyond, focused on commercial, multifamily, and medical office facilities. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio today, Chaz. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
Excited
My
to do
first
this.
podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we met when we were looking at a deal in Harriman, and we connected with you guys, and then went golfing. And it's been fun to get to know you guys over the last 6 to 9 months or so, and understand a little bit more about your group.
Yeah, likewise.
We also are leasing space in one of your buildings.
Great.
Which has been great.
Has it been okay?
Yeah.
Working out for you?
It's been good. You guys have a cool concept there with the Nest office suite. So
cool. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it. So I'm glad we could do this and get to know more about Thrive and how you guys got things off the ground, because it's very impressive what you've done over the last 7 or 8 years, if I'm correct, right? In terms
8 years in April.
8 years in April. Okay.
It's been exciting. And congratulations to you starting your business.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been
fun to watch you guys.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. As you know, stressful, and the market is a little bit turbulent right now, but we're working through everything.
Every year is hard, but the first year is for sure the hardest.
Yeah.
And get that first deal going.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, the first thing I typically ask my guest, Chaz, is to talk a little bit about your upbringing. So early, childhood, high school days, maybe your family or influences that molded you or shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up with a very strong family. Family was everything. 2 great parents, hard workers. Probably my biggest influence in my life was my dad. Hard worker. He wasn't, he had a rough life. His dad passed away. He was an alcoholic. He was pretty rough, tough. His dad was the alcoholic. He had passed away when my dad was 15. So my dad had to grow up really quickly. Yeah. And take care of his family, his mom, sister, his younger brother. And I just think back on him now. I don't think I realized how great he was until I look back. But he had every excuse just to kind of just check out and take life the way it comes based on his tough childhood. And he just made something great out of his life. And a great example to me about working hard, being honest with people, serving people, and staying family oriented, and the great things that can happen there. So that's what he taught us. I had 2 older brothers, a younger sister. My dad worked in the construction industry, started just as a flat work concrete guy, and kind of worked his way up through a couple commercial construction companies, was a project manager for most of his career. I was born in Utah when the construction industry really took a turn for the worst here in Utah in the mid-'80s. He moved his family out to California. Okay. So I was 7 years old at that time, and was essentially raised in California. He worked for a couple large general contractor companies out there. Okay. Probably where I initially got my passion for construction. Nice. Is going out on those construction sites and seeing big hospitals being built, or assisted living facilities, and just the scope of it and the size and the energy and the equipment. It's just, that always spoke to me. I can still remember the smells and the sounds and the excitement there. So I think that's probably why I'm in commercial construction. If I think back really like how I was raised. Yeah. California was a great place to be raised. Perfect weather, a lot of fun, very competitive, a lot of kids, a lot of competitive sports. Yeah. I came from a competitive family with older brothers, younger brother. My little sister is probably the best athlete of all of us. My parents just did so much to give us the opportunities to be successful. My dad always did say that he was always cash or house poor because he would do everything he could to get us in the right neighborhoods, to be around successful individuals and families who we could learn from and be mentored by and network with. So we lived in a great neighborhood in California. In 1994, there was a massive earthquake in Southern California. It actually it hurt our house in such a way that we couldn't live there anymore. It was non-inhabitable. Oh my goodness. So it put my parents in a really bad bind financially. Insurance wasn't really great for earthquakes. It's very expensive and you don't really get anything out of it. Right. So they decided they had to just give the house back to the bank, and they moved their family back to Utah in the mid-90s.
Got it.
So right as I started high school.
Okay.
Moved to Utah, the Holiday area, went to Olympus High.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not an easy time for a kid to move, just starting high school and trying to reestablish yourself and figure out where do I fit in with, sports and friends. And I think that was good for me long term to just be put in that situation and be a little bit more resilient that way. Throughout my life, I meant going back to those guys, just my family, my parents, just scraping to give us a great lifestyle. My mom took random jobs, secretary, receptionist at offices, taught preschool in her home. I think we had some foster kids, probably for some financial gains there to help them out year over year, and whatever they could do. And that just means a lot to me that they would sacrifice. But they taught me a lot about just do what it takes to be successful and provide for your family.
That's
so
great.
We moved to Utah, and my dad, he takes a job with a local construction company, and then a California company comes to him, and they decide they want to start a shop here in Utah.
Okay.
They ask him to come over and get it set up, and they build a nice project up in Park City, a multifamily project. I kind of keep an eye on that through high school. And as the project finishes, for whatever reason, they just came to my dad. They took him and my mom out to dinner one night and said, hey, you know what? We're going to close the shop here in Utah, and thank you for what you've done, but it's just not going to work out for us. And they just pulled the business, and had left my dad again in a spot where he had to figure out what to do now. He's probably coming up on 50 at that point.
Okay.
And that's when he started his first business.
It
was just a small residential remodeling and addition company in construction. He was out there every day swinging a hammer and digging trenches and taking it from foundation up to finished work. And at some point, each of my brothers had worked for him when we were in college for that company. So got a lot of hands-on training, and it's really cool to be able to work with my dad that closely day to day. So it was pretty cool to see him just, again, being resilient and picking himself up and going and starting something.
Yeah.
So through high school, I kind of felt like that was my plan as well. Like I think I saw that the whole idea of working for a company, working up the ladder, them taking care of me, being stable, that's not the American way for me, because I saw he tried that, he did that, and then at 50 years old, he's starting over.
Right.
So I saw that, hey, there's probably more security in being the guy that is making the decisions, who knows if cash flow is going to be a problem 6 months from now, knows how long those lights are going to be on. So I'd say in high school, I got a pretty good sense that, hey, entrepreneurship is the path for me.
Yeah.
Graduate high school, and I serve a mission, go to Bulgaria. The first night in the missionary training center, I go and meet I guess there's 9 other elders and a couple sisters in the MTC group with me. Mm-hmm. And one of those elders is a guy named Steve Broadbent. And he and I become close through the MTC, 9 weeks there, really tight quarters together every day. And he and I just kind of spoke the same language and got along. And we stayed friends through the 2 years in Bulgaria. Never really served close to each other, but we're buddies and could kind of count on each other when we needed somebody to talk to. Great experience there with him. The mission experience in general. It was Eastern Europe. 1999, I went out there, so pretty close to the Soviet collapse.
Sure.
It was really interesting to see how the world was changing at that time. Get home in 2001 with the idea, hey, I've got to figure out what I want to do with my life now. Start school at the University of Utah. Mm-hmm. I think at that point, the idea was I'd probably become a dentist. My mom had worked for a dentist during one of those jobs that she had, and I spent some time there. And just kind of liked the vibe there. The guy, he worked 4 days a week.
Yeah, sure.
Ran his own company, made decent money.
Yeah.
Seemed like a pretty cool lifestyle this guy had.
Yeah.
And my other passion was design and architecture. I took a couple drafting classes in high school and middle school, and probably the only A+ I ever had growing up was in drafting.
Cool.
It was something I just kind of spoke to me and I get my mind around. So I thought either architecture or dental school is probably my path. I ran into an architect one night just at dinner with some friends, and he did everything he could to talk me out of architecture.
Really?
I don't know why he was so unhappy with his career path, but
Interesting.
The school's too long. By the time you finish school, you got to go work for somebody for so many years before you can take your licensing exams and your license, and you're still not making very good money. And, and then until you start your own business, your best case, late 30s, 40s, you might as well go be a doctor, right? If you're going to do that much education and make some real money. And so, well, I guess maybe go back to dental school. That became kind of the leading approach for me at that point. I went to school, started some like the pre-dental classes, a lot of science, and I just did not like the science. It did not speak to me for whatever reason. Yeah. I decided I needed to do some business classes as well if I'm going to run my own business while I do a dental practice. And the dental or the business side just made way more sense. It was the people that I wanted to be with, in class, and the kind of language I wanted to speak and the ideas I wanted to pursue. Yep. So business became the passion. I kind of put dentistry aside at that point.
Got it.
Another big event happened in the world at that time. It was 9/11 happened while I was in college. And that changed everything. Everyone's perspective, the patriotism, the desire to go do something to better the world and to protect people. And so I had a weird little switch in my mindset that maybe CIA or FBI was my career path. Yeah. I wanted to go do something cool and go help the world. Yeah. I'd been in Eastern Europe. I had some language history. Thought I might be able to do something interesting on that side. Was dating my to-be wife at that time, Ashley. And I was talking to her dad. He's been very successful in banking and finance, and telling him this plan about CIA. And I could tell he was not excited about his daughter marrying a guy that was going to take her around the world and be in weird, dangerous situations. And, but I told him, I just want to help people. Like that's my vision. That's what I want to do in life, is do as much as I can to help other people. And he said, Chaz, you can help a lot more people with money than if you don't have money. And it could be a lot more safe and have a lot better family life if you look at something in business. And it struck me, you're probably right. What can I do now in the business world, but still have the opportunity to help others and create a lifestyle for my family that puts them first? So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life at that time. I'm going on a vacation with my wife's family. I'm married now at this time. Okay. And this is before YouTube and internet, really. It's 2003. So I went to Barnes & Noble, and I went in the business section, self-help, and tried to figure out, I just need to find a book that might give me some direction. We're going to be at the beach for the next week. I just want to sit on the beach and read a cool business book and see what comes. So I just see a book title. It's called Retire Young, Retire Rich by Robert Kiyosaki. And I thought, okay, who doesn't want to retire young and retire rich? Let's see what he has to say. I don't know anything about Kiyosaki at the time, again, before YouTube and his social media presence. Right. So I grabbed the book, buy it, and I'm just totally engaged by this book. All the principle he's talking about, cash flow and passive income and building it through real estate. And it's just like, okay, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And I didn't even know real estate development was a career at that time. I hadn't been around developers, and I didn't know how buildings were being built and owned and leased and financed, but it started making a lot of sense to me. And so I went and bought his next book. Well, his book that really made him famous is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Classic. Yeah. Great book. And that's a book that I still read like every couple of years. And I have my kids read it now. And I want them to learn these principles because it's just so exciting. So I decided I'm going to be a developer under some situation. I didn't know how it was going to work. Again, I was working for a small residential construction company at the time still, and I thought what I'm probably going to do is buy some homes and start working on flipping homes, residential homes. Maybe I live in a home, fix it up, flip it. I had no money. I had no network. And my dad really didn't either, right? I mean, we were just kind of just struggling to get by. Yeah. But I thought that's a path I could probably maintain. I got to buy a house anyways. Maybe I buy a duplex, rent the other side, and just start doing a few of these. Maybe buy a little piece of property one day and build 5 or 6 homes and be a home builder. And I remember sitting in my bed, my wife's next to me, and I just get her so excited. I'm like, Ashley, this is it. I figured it out. Yeah. This is what we're going to do. And she was totally on board with it and excited about it. And so now I got to figure out who's doing this in the world. Who do I talk to? How do I get involved? And I did have a neighbor who I knew was an investor. He had invested and built some assisted living facilities. So I'm going to go talk to this guy and just pick his brain. And told him about where I'm at in school and kind of this path I've been on. And he said, well, I know of a guy, a developer that's looking for a super entry-level guy to come in and do some land acquisition for him. So start knocking doors and kicking dirt with the farmers out there and seeing if you can pick up some land. Yeah. Residential lot developer. I thought, oh, that's amazing. whatever it takes, whatever he wants to pay me.
Yep.
Let me go talk to that guy. And I do some research on it. It's called Wentworth Development. And I noticed that some of the principles are the same as the guys at Rimrock Construction. And I have a friend, this guy, Steve, from my mission, who's working at Rimrock at the time.
Okay.
He's doing cells, construction cells. And I call Steve and I say, hey, what do you know about Wentworth Development? He's like, oh, those guys, they're awesome. They're doing really cool things, making a lot of money, developing, 40 to 100 lot subdivisions, selling off different lots to builders. He's like, that'd be a really cool job. You should go talk to those guys. But he's like, but if you're looking for something, come talk to us too, because we're trying to have this idea to start doing a commercial development company. Come talk to Mark Hampton, who was the president of Rimrock at the time, and had this idea to start this development company internal to Rimrock. So, man, a kid with no experience, no network, all of a sudden, still in college, married, pressure of starting, trying to provide for a family. Now I have 2 opportunities to go talk to these guys and get a start in the industry that I'm passionate about before I even know what the industry is. I go meet with Mark, and Mark lays out this great plan about what they're going to do, and kind of speaking the same language as the stuff I've read in Kiyosaki about passive income, and using construction, though, to create value from ground up and then hold equity in these buildings. And then I went and met with the president of Wentworth, and I guess his vision wasn't as strong for me personally, but for the company, he was passionate, and they were doing great things. So I think just based on the vibe from the 2 presidents, I felt like this guy was going to take better care of me and give me better opportunity to learn and to be mentored. And so I went and took the job with Rimrock, and they paid me almost nothing. And I was making substantially more money just working construction for my dad, but I saw it as an opportunity to learn and to network and to be with guys that I want to work with. Steve was a great guy. I trusted him, good friends with him, and I really got a good vibe with Mark and what they were doing over there. And
that's great. Well, I want to pause there. There's a lot to unpack, and I think you brought up a couple of really good points. I think one that resonated really with me and I think others as well is you mentioned your dad, and that moment you realized that perhaps taking the route of graduate from college, go get the corporate job, kind of climb the ladder, contradictory to what maybe most would think, isn't always the secure path, right? And I had a similar experience. So my dad is a journalist, so news anchor. And my childhood was every 2-3 years we were moving to a different state. And it was either, my dad had an opportunity to climb the corporate ladder, move to a different area, or in some instances lost the job or lost an opportunity. And I think I didn't realize until more recently, like having to, relocate, move around, and not feeling like there's a lack of control in your own destiny, helped me, and sounds like helped you realize, like, I would like to have a little bit more say in how this all shakes out for me in life. And I think working for others, and you took the same route, is extremely beneficial early on. Go and learn, go and get the experience and the track record. But sometimes the less risky path is going out on your own and carving your own destiny. So I think that's a great.
Well, that really hit home for me personally. This is 2004. I take that first job with Rimrock, and we have 3-4 great years, right? Pre-2008 recession, 2009, and it was awesome. I look back at couple windows in my career where things just kind of worked. Pricing worked, tenant demand worked. Land was valued at a point where we could buy things. That 05, 06 era was awesome. Probably 15, 16, 17 was as good recently. But we saw the writing on the wall. I think everyone knew that construction, especially homes, were overvalued. We had these issues with phony appraisals and fraud and investors coming in and buying and flipping, and it was nuts, right? So we knew it. We started slowing down, and we made some really good decisions leading up to the recession, pre-leasing our buildings, partnering with the tenants that are in our buildings to help get through the downtimes. But it still hit hard. Every company was hit. And in 2008, that Wentworth company that I interviewed with merged with Rimrock Development and formed Rockworth companies. Oh, okay. That's where Rockworth came from.
Got it.
The Rock from Rimrock and Rim from, Wentworth. So
got it.
Worth
okay, yeah. I see. Makes sense.
Anyway, that's where that came from. Okay. So it's funny because I would have ended up probably in the same company. Yeah. Whichever way I would have chosen to go.
Yeah. And I like Chaz, that you brought up Robert Kiyosaki and that book. similar for me. So my senior year of college, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad a little bit later, but I read a book by Grant Cardone, and Grant gets a lot of flack, I think, for just being, big personality, but it was kind of like this idea of, create your own path, multifamily, create cash flow, passive income. And I think it's interesting because I went to go work for JP Morgan, and the private equity groups, the very sophisticated institutional investors, they don't really ever talk about, I want to create passive income for myself. I want to create generational wealth. It's more like, look at these sexy deals we're doing, and we work in high finance and real estate. Yeah. And so I think it's refreshing to hear from you that your foundation and your desire was based off of, I would like to create passive income and cash flow for my family, build generational wealth, and do that. And that's kind of what led you down the path. Because I think for real estate and people looking to invest in real estate, that's really the end goal is, how can I retire young and retire with cash flow and have those things? And so I'm I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'd love to hear kind of the rest of the story in terms of how that initial desire came to fruition. So you start off at Rimrock, and maybe tell us a little bit about that experience. And
yeah, awesome experience. Again, great mentor. Mark he is the mentor for me. His passion, his energy, his ability to put deals together. A lot of people know him, and he's a great man. He was very supportive when it came time for us to move on. In fact, he said, I feel like a proud father right now, which I think is a way most of us as business owners should feel now when our guys get to a point where they have to grow beyond what we can provide for them. So it's a good lesson for me to see that,
That's good.
So let's give them the opportunity now to have what I have, what I've built. They can go do that for themselves. Hopefully there's a way to do that internally within our company, that we can set up situations for everyone they feel like they have a home long term. But, if it's not, there's a desire you had, I have. I just had to know, can I go do this on my own? They could have given me the best deal possible, and I think I would have still, my whole life, regretted not giving it a shot.
Sure.
And trying to go build my own thing. But I saw these guys. They were very great mentors, great experience, good culture. Immediately, they put me on a path to develop medical office buildings. We were talking to lenders and asking them, of all the people you guys finance, which businesses are the least risky, have the least default rate? They said it's dentists. So we're thinking from a landlord's perspective, if our goal is long-term holds, long-term cash flow, we want the least risky tenants that will be there the longest.
Yeah.
So we started going after the dental market and really entrenching ourselves in that network. Great thing about dentists is they really don't move often. So you put them in your building. They don't take a lot of space, 2,000 to 5,000 square feet. But you can think of your dentist when you were a kid. He probably was there for 30 years. Well, maybe not if you were moving every 2 years. But generally speaking, these guys don't go anywhere. It's expensive for them to build out their space. Their clientele gets used to coming to that location, and there's no need to move. So we focused on dental, turned into medical, started working with doctors and dermatologists, physical therapists, family practice physicians, orthodontists, general dentists, pediatric dentists, and that kind of was our niche.
Got it.
So I started developing small projects, 5,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. They were $1 million to $4 million projects. Again, like small enough where a small young company can manage that as far as raising the capital. Maybe you're only raising between $300,000 to $1 million, which is much more manageable than these large apartment deals that we're doing right now, where there might be a $25 million raise.
Sure.
But it was really interesting because I got to do these small projects over and over and over again. They were quicker, got me through the process, see the decisions I was making on the front end, how it affects me when I go to refinance my construction loan, to go to permanent financing, what these leases are doing long term.
Yeah.
And long enough where I started seeing renewals in leases. So I saw the whole life cycle during this time with the Rimrock guys, and then eventually over there at Rockworth. So they merge us over with Rockworth. I go over and I still am managing the medical and professional office division.
Okay.
Steve comes over from Rimrock with us. He's in charge of multifamily at that point.
Got it.
This is 2008 when banks shut down financing. I had a deal in Saratoga Springs. It was 20,000 square feet, 100% pre-leased. We had an investor, substantial net worth and liquidity, like millions of dollars. And we need a $2 or $3 million loan from the bank in 2008.
Yeah.
The deal was ready to go. Then the crash happened. The bank came back to us like, hey, we can't finance this anymore. Like FDIC's all over us. Our buckets are full. We can't do new development, regardless how strong the deal is. And we thought, okay, if this deal doesn't get financed, like no deal is going to get
Right.
financed. So we had to restructure everything. How do we get money from banks? At that point, Steve's focus became HUD finance projects. The government was looking to stimulate the economy. They were really beefing up their HUD program for multifamily. He became HUD qualified. He does a lot of 221 D4 loans through the HUD process. They're a pain in the butt, but it's really awesome money. 40-year amortizations, locked from day one on that interest rate, non-recourse. Investors love that. No risk.
It's great.
Limited risk. So he started doing that, and I started doing a lot of SBA type stuff.
Okay.
So I was working with these same doctors and dentists who can go qualify for SBA loans as owner occupants. But we had to build the buildings differently. We had to build the building with basically cash. So find a high net worth individual that would give us a $2-3 million loan, and then we would have the buildings pre-sold as office condos. And then at the end of the construction, they'd get SBA financing, and they would buy out the condos and we'd pay back our investor and make whatever upside we had on it. So it was enough to justify my existence in the company.
Sure.
Right? I was making enough money to pay for myself and keep those guys happy. But there was always that nagging concern, right? We had a little bit of a initial layoffs. We merged the companies. And I thought any day they could come in and just say, okay, guys, sorry, it's not working.
Yeah.
We're just going to turn the lights off.
Right.
And it just like triggered again, like back in the 90s, seeing that happen to my dad. It's like, this is no more safe than if I was going to start my own company. At least I would know when the cash flow is about to dry out, right? They won't have 2 weeks notice. I'll have maybe 2 months notice.
Right.
So, we continued to work for those guys, build up those divisions. I think made them some pretty good money over the next 3-4 years from 09, 10, 11, 12 were really strong, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Then 2015 came and we felt like it was just time to go try it on our own.
Nice.
And so Steve and I, we gave notice of our resignation. Really hard to do. We didn't know if they're going to say, okay, there's the door.
Yeah.
We thanks for all you've done, but we can't have you around, or if they wanted us to stick around for a few months and help, maneuver through the projects that we had in the pipeline.
Right.
They were gracious. They were great to exit from, and they had to stay on for about 6 weeks. Kind of just transition the projects to the new project managers and give us a little bit of a runway to just kind of start our projects, because we did not want to start projects before we gave our notice that we were going to leave.
Sure.
We thought it was unethical, and we don't want to even play in that gray area.
Yeah.
But once we gave notice, we said, hey, we can stick around for a few weeks, but we have to get started on these projects. There's 2 or 3 here that we want to chase down.
Right.
The development process, it's not fast.
No.
And as soon as you quit your job and that paycheck stops, you are naked in the wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Financially. And we went 8 months without a paycheck.
Wow.
Until our first deal funded, and we could pull out a little bit of the development fee. To pay the bills.
Jeez.
Luckily, during that time, my wife, she's a nurse.
Okay.
So she was working part-time as a nurse, bringing in some income. We still had 4 kids at the time. So and I was trying to build a business from ground up, so she couldn't just go full-time. It just wasn't going to work. But I had a little bit of income from her.
That's good. So that was 2015.
Yep.
And you have 4 kids. About how old were you at that time?
35.
35.
Okay. My oldest would have been 7. I had 3 boys.
Yeah.
7, 5, and 2. And then we had our first little girl. She was a newborn.
Yeah. That's a stressful time. So did you and Steve, how long had you been kind of planning, like thinking through strategy, talking through what we were going to do?
Truth be told, I wrote a paper in my entrepreneurship class in college about this, mentioning Steve by name as my partner. And how it would work. What are the benefits of staying with the company and working through their channel, or starting our own company, and kind of comparing and contrasting the 2 career paths. At what time would it be appropriate to move on? How long do you stay with your existing company for the education and the network and experience? So truthfully, that was always our plan. But things would change. Had they come to us with some type of a ownership package or profit share, things might have been different.
Right.
But again, like I said, I think that there was something deeper, that it just, no matter what had happened, it was the right path, and the path that we both wanted to do.
So we're going through a similar thing, right? So we're 6 months into our company here, and we've got 2 properties we closed on in San Antonio as a co-GP, kind of co-partnership deal, existing property. Smaller ownership in that, so not a lot of revenue for us. and then we're working on a development deal right now. But I totally understand that period of ramping up where there's no revenue, you're just working through entitlement or you're working through a deal. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. So I'm curious because when you guys quit, what was the strategy for investors for tying up land, for kind of pursuit capital, deposits? Like, how did you kind of know that you were going to have what you needed to execute at that point?
Well, you never know, right?
Yeah,
we didn't know for sure.
know.
We had a plan. And again, we wanted to be really sensitive to our previous employers and not go after their same investor pool.
Sure.
Or not even go after their same architect pool or contractor pool.
Sure.
Not use the relationships that they built with us for this new company. So we had to kind of start from scratch.
Yeah.
Steve had a brother-in-law, an orthodontist, that wanted to do a project in Harriman. So we knew, hey, we could go talk to him, go find a piece of property, and he'd be kind of the initial tenant to help kick things off. So as soon as we left, we went and searched the Harriman market, found a handful of different sites, went and met with him, presented our plan. It was an office condo deal. Again, I'd been doing those, and it would have been easier for him to get financing, and he has a little bit more control of the building that way. He got on board with that. We had him put up, we had him sign a lease with an option to buy.
Okay.
So we had security from day one that we're not just going to go develop this for the next 8 months. Then he decides, I'm not going to do this, keep my earnest money, I'm going to walk away, right? So there was a little bit more security with that lease. We had him put some money down, $20,000 maybe, which helped pay for some of that architecture fee, city submittals, civil engineering, right?
Sure.
We got introduced to a general dentist group, a big group, in the same situation, started putting that deal together. They brought a little cash. So we told them, hey, there's a portion of this money that's non-refundable at this date, and we could use that money to help with some of the fees. And then we had some pre-leasing in place. We had a story.
Yeah.
We go out and start talking to some of our higher net worth friends and family.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. We're going to go build this building. We already have these 2 guys committed. Takes about half of the building. I'm sure I can go find 2 more through the construction phase.
Yeah.
Put your money up. We'll get a construction loan. Bank of Utah actually funded that, and actually Bank of American Fork funded that one.
Nice.
They kind of took a flyer on the deal. We didn't have really any net worth to speak of or liquidities.
Sure.
Again, kind of timing was good.
Yeah.
Banks were a little bit more flexible at that point. They were coming out of the recession, trying to get back in the markets. We had some good pre-leasing, took the risk away from them. So we had to raise, let's say it was a $3 million project.
Okay.
So we would have raised somewhere in like the $750,000 range.
Yeah.
Which was doable, right? You find 6 guys that could each bring $150,000.
Right.
And we're going to show them a way to get an 18% return on their money annually for the year or 2 that we have. And it ended up being about a year and a half. We got them their money back, sold the units, helped those tenants get SBA financing, bought it from us. So that was a pretty quick turnaround once we started construction. But there was that 8-month window. Yeah. I was searching for land, negotiating those leases, getting all the entitlement done, and getting the loan in place before we could pull a fee.
Yeah.
I remember that day vividly. I was going to the bank, and after the draw was put in, and I had a development fee, and it was less than 6 figures, but
just
everything
right?
to me. I got the check. I'm sitting in the drive aisle at the bank. It's like, okay, we can breathe now.
Yeah. Oh man, what a good feeling.
Yeah.
So that was your first deal out of the gate.
Yes.
Was how okay. So a $3 million, $750,000 raise. Bank of American Fork came in for the debt. That's great. And then, so would you? Because thinking about a newer developer or newer acquisition group, would your suggestion be to start, so on the smaller side? Because for us, coming from kind of the JP Morgans, and my business partner was at Bridge Investment Group, we're just accustomed to larger deals like 350 unit apartment complexes or large, $1 million warehouses. And we've brushed shoulders with a lot of the institutional private equity groups. And so the deal we did down in San Antonio was a $90 million deal, and we raised $25 million from a private equity group. And it was great, but now we've seen with the shift in the market that a lot of these institutional groups are sitting on their hands a little bit, or pencils down, just with the volatility, and they're being extremely selective on deals. And if your whole business plan is contingent upon finding a large check from a single group, it can get very hard to execute. So now we've shifted a little bit where it's like, well, maybe we should go look at some smaller deals because they're just more palatable. So how did you guys think about that? When, a $750,000 raise is pretty palatable. What was your thought process in size and scaling?
Certainly, it's a time issue more than anything. I could work on an apartment deal. It might take us 3 years to entitle it and fund it. Or we can do an office deal, a small office deal, and it might take me 6 to 8 months if I'm just really cruising on that.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. And during that entire time, we just kind of went crazy with office, medical office and professional office from 2015 to 2020.
Okay.
We got a lot of deals done. We started hiring employees, and it was a great little model for us. During that same time, Steve was trying to start a few apartment deals. We actually partnered with a group up in Boise, and we did some work with them. We sold our interest at the end of construction. We needed some cash to start hiring and get an office and move out of our homes and start creating actually more of a culture in an office. So that's when after 2 years, we had the Harriman deal done. We did a deal out in Eagle Mountain, another smaller medical office deal. And then we had that apartment deal done and sold. So now we had some cash.
Nice.
We also were able to represent a group of property owners that wanted to sell a large commercial office building. So as just agents, took a decent commission on a $12 million sell.
Nice.
Early on. So we also had within a year, we had a couple 6-figure transactions to help us with some cash. But while Steve was trying to get those apartments running, we realized it was just burning our cash up because it wasn't a $5,000 fee from the architect. It was a $35,000 fee from the architect.
Yeah.
Your market study was $8,000 and your civil engineering bill was $50,000 or $100,000.
Yep.
Your city entitlements all the cash we were making were going into these larger projects, trying to get them started, and they were just dragging out, and we were having a hard time financing them. So we had to have tough discussions. Hey, let's just hold tight on multifamily for a couple of years. Let's just put all of our resources to these office deals that are a little bit easier to get started and quicker from a cash flow perspective. And it also gave our new employees a good chance to train in development because they were getting through these projects quicker, getting their hands in the construction side of things and in the stabilization side and turned over to property management, rather where in a multifamily deal might have taken them 4 or 5 years to get through that process. So I think it educated our guys better, and it gave us not as much cash, but more cash sooner by going small.
That's smart.
And then it kind of just organically, the deals got bigger. From a 15,000 square foot building, it takes the same amount of headache and time to do that one as maybe a 30,000 square foot or a 45,000 square foot office building.
Yeah.
But instead of, raising 750,000, now we're raising $2.5 million. But we had some history now with our investors, and they're bringing their friends and their family, and all of a sudden I could raise $2.5 million, and that doesn't concern us as much.
Yeah.
So we got into that. We started doing some bigger projects, and the last couple of years, got those built. And I think the biggest success that we've had is all of our office product is fully stabilized, fully leased, with the exception of one building in Vineyard. We still have some vacancy, but they're all refinanced on permanent debt, non-recourse debt, and we're 3.5% to 4.75% on our interest rates locked for the next 8 to 10 years.
That works.
So even if we get into some hard times now, the next couple of years, which will be tough.
Yep.
We've got some decent cash flow coming from those. We've opened a property management group that's managing all of our assets. So that's income coming in from that side. And we've also been involved with a new construction company and a new architecture firm that's continuing to grow, and we get a little piece of that as those are being more and more successful. So we've diversified from just real estate into some other businesses that we own.
And that's Mint.
For cash flow.
Mint construction, Mint architecture. Yeah. I see, so I live in Lehigh, and I see Mint signage on some Boyer townhomes that are going up in Holbrook Farms. Right. So that's great.
Yeah, Mint's exploded. Their growth has been far faster than we ever anticipated.
I love it. I mean, you talk about pivoting, initially thinking, okay, we're going to dual track apartments and commercial out the gate with Steve, but then realizing, okay, we need to just make an adjustment here because of cash flow. And we're having the same thought as, initially it was, let's do development acquisitions. Let's focus just as much time on the development industrial side as we do on the acquisition side. But with the shift in the market, the timing for entitlement, this deal in Harriman it's going to be 18 months before we see any development fee, you know,
Right.
and so we're thinking, okay, let's focus more on acquisitions. Let's do more palatable deals. Let's get fees in the door. Let's, you know, try to, similar to you guys, just keep things going as the market shifted. So I think that's super smart. And then diversification. Yeah, I would love to hear more, Chaz, about how you guys did that. So in-house property management, in-house construction team, in-house architecture. How was it getting those off the ground and scaling that? And at what time did you do that? How far into your guys' business?
So we were about 2.5 years into Thrive when we talked to our friend Morgan Sharp, who now owns Mint Construction, runs Mint.
Okay.
And we kind of just outlined this idea of, we asked him to come work for us. And he's like, it sounds cool, but my passion is construction. I really want to start a construction company. We're like, oh, well, we actually have a plan. We thought it'd be a good idea for us to do construction in-house and bring someone in. We thought it'd be really small and start doing some TI work for us and see where that goes until we can get qualified to do some of our bigger projects. But, you know, Morgan just took it to a whole nother level. He's like, you got to meet my friend Nick. Nick's an amazing project manager. He's been doing a bunch of apartments and bigger projects. If he ran the construction side, I could do the pre-construction side and the marketing side. And those guys just took it and ran. Steve and I helped him with the first couple of jobs that we had. Hey, we have this project coming up. Let's try to get Mint to build this thing. Yeah. Which isn't easy. You got to go to your investors and say, hey, we have this brand new construction company.
Sure.
These guys are super experienced. We know them personally. They do a great job.
Yeah.
But our partners need to buy off on it as well. And we were able to make that pitch and got them their first job. It was a deal out in South Jordan, an office building, like 18,000 square foot job. Then they took $1 million TI right after that. And kind of the sky's been the limit for them. Since then, we were hoping to do $30 million in construction projects in the first 5 years, and they've tripled that.
Wow.
In the first 5 years.
Wow.
Obviously, construction costs going up has
sure.
beefed up that number. But
yeah.
They're just fantastic. And then it was Morgan's idea to bring architecture in-house and kind of create this true design build model where the contractor works with the architects and the owners. And it's an integrated experience where you're managing costs and budget and anticipations from day one, which has just been remarkable, especially going into these tough years. Well, the next couple of years where costs have been outrageous and changing every day, and lead times have been out of control. And, you're trying to order electrical gear that's 9 months out and still that you got to fabricate 12 months before you can install. And having that team where we're making these decisions in real time together has been a huge blessing for our business, for all three businesses.
I'm a big fan of design build. I know it's not the MO in Utah. I think a lot of developers are trying to understand what that means, because historically it's been, you've got your architect, you got your GC, and the developer's kind of making sure everything's working. But we have a relationship with Arco, kind of shout out to Arco. Those guys have been helping us size up a couple of deals, and just and it sounds like Mint, similar process where it's just, if you're a newer group, 1-2 man shop, and you're trying to streamline the design and construction process, I think design build is a great way to kind of streamline it, make it more efficient, and just have your team do a lot of the work for you, as opposed to, kind of herding cats to some extent to try to keep everything. So it's a great model. I think it's cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's helped a lot. I mean, I can imagine, had we gotten a bid from somebody early in the process in 2020, and then went to an architect and designed the whole project, and then took it out to bid 3 or 4 contractors. And those numbers all of a sudden are 50% higher than our initial bid that we got. Right. Where do you even go from there? So having that constant contact with the contractor has been really helpful for us to have an idea where things are headed.
And how are you guys, so with Mint construction and architecture, how is that structured with Thrive? Like, are you and Steve part owners? How did you structure that? If somebody's like, hey, I would love to create a property management arm or a construction arm, do you guys own it outright? Or how did you think about that?
No, so Steve and I took a very minor interest in each of those companies.
Got it.
With just the anticipation that we're going to feed them jobs.
Sure.
We're going to help them with some of the initial capital requirements up front as a startup.
Sure.
We didn't have that. We kind of bootstrapped it, the two of us. We didn't bring on a financial partner at all.
Okay.
Which I'm really grateful we did it that way. It's just the two of us. We got to make all the decisions, and
that's nice.
It makes it really quick and easy. But those guys do have just us as small minority partners, really just for more support.
Got it.
Feeding them projects. And that's the same on any of our project, any of our companies, Lyft, Mint.
Got it.
And now Nest as well.
Right.
I guess we have a little bit more ownership in Nest as
Very
one of
cool.
the managers there. But yeah, those guys run it. It's independent. We made it really clear that you're separate companies, that you need to earn our work. You don't just get everything. It's got to be fair for our investors, fair for everyone involved. And that's how we do operate. So
makes sense.
It's been great.
Cool. That's great. Would love, Chess, to talk a little bit about your strategy with raising capital. So when you guys first got off the ground, it sounds like your first raise was about $750,000. How did you, how did you execute on that? And then what would be your advice for people looking to raise money? And just a little bit of context and why, kind of a selfish question as we're going through this process, right? I feel like there are several ways you can go about it. When I look at Utah and I look at groups like Thrive or Peak Capital or North Rock or Dakota, whoever it is, I think the MO has been very much high net worth, family office, and really just relationship based, word of mouth. And then I also look at groups like Cardone Capital, Grant Cardone's group, or some of these more national firms that use social media. They do paid advertisement. They're more like, hey, click on this webinar and we'll teach you how to, kind of like a Robert Kiyosaki type thing. Mm-hmm. You can invest in this deal, syndication, passive income, and kind of marketing it more like, a sale or a pitch.
Right.
And maybe going out to the masses in that way, $50,000 checks. So how did you guys think about your strategy when you were coming out of the ground, and how's it been for you?
Well, I would say that's going to be the hardest thing that we face as developers for the next couple of years. You hit on it earlier. A lot of these bigger family offices and institutions are just going to kind of wait and see what happens to our market. I think a lot of them think there's going to be some distressed property opportunities out there, and they want to have their capital ready to benefit from those. So I think that we're being realistic, that it's going to be a challenge to raise capital for some of these projects that we have in the pipeline. And quite frankly, it's really hard to make them pencil right now with interest rates and with construction cost still going up. I think we all were hoping that we'd start seeing some relief on rates or construction costs. And I think we have seen some wood come down or lumber, but that's about it. Yeah. I just got a big change order on a concrete change on one of my projects just last week. So I'm a little bit less optimistic about a market correction with costs in the near future. Mm-hmm. So we've had to kind of change our outlook on our model. Again, we're in a position with some cash flowing assets and some other companies where we don't have to develop just for the sake of cash right now. Sure. Right? We can kind of be a little bit more strategic and patient. But what we do want to do is keep working on land acquisition in the right markets where we believe long term. Start working through design, work through entitlement, with the expectation that takes a long time. A couple of years, 18 months, like you said in Harriman. Do that now. Hopefully, in 18 months from now, or 12 months from now, or 24 months from now, the economics start making more sense, and that investor capital is more available to groups like ours. So we're still moving full steam ahead on projects, but we might put the brakes on right before permitting, or right before financing. In the meantime, we've dedicated a new division in our company. We have a guy full-time now just doing investor relations, working across the country, trying to build relationships with some of these larger institutional groups, multifamily or family offices, and as well as the high net worth individuals, in addition to retaining the relationships with our current investors and making sure that they're completely up to speed and have the right information and that they're comfortable with the investments they have with us. So it's a long play for us. I don't think that 3-month capital, 6-month capital is going to be very available. But if we can be in the right locations, the right markets, with the right stories, the right economic principles, when all that aligns, we'll be able to raise capital because we have put in the legwork now to make those relationships with some of these other bigger groups. Makes sense. Up to this point, we've been very successful with friends and family and high net worth individuals. The raises have been a little bit smaller and more manageable. And it's a big network of people that we manage. So we've had to beef up our just professionalism and reporting because they're becoming more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Every year that we deal with higher net worth people.
That makes sense. What is your guys' would you say typical raise in terms of size? What's your sweet spot that you feel comfortable with?
I think 10 million is pretty doable right now.
Yeah.
As we get over 10 million, we're going to start expanding our network. Like I say, early days, 2 million used to scare us, and that seems like, oh yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Give us 45 days and close on that piece of property. But even that's going to be harder there now, right? I mean, now you're dealing with a guy, instead of having 500,000, he has 100,000. So you're dealing with 20 guys instead of 4 guys for that $2 million raise.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I think 5 to 10 is pretty traditional for us.
Yeah. That's great. Cool. Well, would love to hear where you guys are today. How many deals do you have in the pipeline? Kind of what's your existing portfolio look like? And then what's the future for Thrive?
The pipeline, like I say, we've shifted a little bit away from the office side and the commercial side in the short term. There's still opportunities out there, and we don't want to get out of that market because it takes a long time to network yourself into those markets and have those relationships.
Yeah.
So we have a deal out in South Jordan, an office condo deal, 30,000 square feet we're working on right now, and one out in Stansbury Park, another medical office project.
Okay.
So we're not going away from office. I have a 100,000 square foot office building under construction in Draper right now. That's where that change order hit me.
Got it.
This week.
Dang.
But that's 100% pre-leased. We did a one-time close on financing before the rates went up. So I'm locked for 10 years on that deal.
Nice.
So there's still opportunities out there for good commercial projects.
Yeah.
We're just going to be strategic about where we go and where we put that. Because it all comes down to just opportunity cost, right? We only have so much capital. It's going to be hard to raise capital. So we got to make sure that we're putting the investor capital in the best possible projects.
Right.
And just prioritize. Multifamily is still a huge desire for us and outlook and focus. We have a pretty ambitious goal to have 5,000 units built in the next 5 years.
That's great.
We are well on our way with what we have under construction now and what's in the pipeline, and then some new land that we continue to close on. One thing that we're doing that is going to help with capital is we're partnering with the landowners on a lot of our deals. So they're contributing their land as equity.
Yeah.
And so you trade their land as equity. We can trade our development fee as equity. And that really cuts down on the equity requirement. And we get a pretty good chunk of the equity in the deal, and they do as well.
Right.
There's massive tax advantages for them to do that way rather than selling and trying to 1031 into something else. They just roll it in, defer tax.
Right.
We have the same benefits with our fees.
Yeah.
And then that's been a big help with capital.
That's great. I'm curious in that structure, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but when somebody rolls their land into a deal and you take it through entitlement as the developer. So let's say you sign an agreement with them, it's unentitled land, needs to be rezoned, permitted. If you take a year to get it entitled and then it's appraised and it's $1 million more than it was when you signed the JV with the landowner, how do you treat that with the landowner? Like, do you guys get that upside? Do they get the upside?
Generally, we've been more fair on the landowner side there.
Okay.
They get a bigger chunk of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're going to take the risk. They're tying up their land, which is ultimately capital for a longer period of time. And we're going to make a fee to go put it together and help with the zoning. But there might be some type of split, but I'd say we'd err more heavily on the landowner side.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for us, and I'm sure for you guys, it's the name of the game is just flexibility and execution.
Right.
And it's like there's no time to be greedy when you're getting off the ground, and you want to make investors happy, you want to make partners happy, and make sure everybody's on the same page. So that sounds like the right approach.
Bottom line, that's where we value what we value the most is our investors and our tenants.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to be an amazing experience for them. We have to execute on what we promise, what we set out to do. So we, again, have to have great properties with a really great vision and nail down our underwriting, know exactly what are the contingencies when things change, because we've seen they change every day.
Yeah.
There's always something new. And as we take care of these investors, we take care of our tenants, give everyone a good experience, whether you're a residential tenant of ours or an office tenant of ours. We want you to renew your lease, stay as long as you can, bring your friends, encourage them to come do a deal with us. That's how we market, and that's how we've been able to grow. So flexibility, that's you nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. I'm curious. So one question I had on here is kind of about money. So coming from, when you guys first got off the ground, 8-9 months, no income, you've got 4 kids, and it's probably a big struggle you guys have always had a lot of success at this point. How has your mind shifted on money in general? How do you view money? How has it impacted you now that you've had some success? Because I think the goal of a lot of entrepreneurs is like, I want to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
And now that, you're 8-9 years in, you've had success. I mean, how is that, when you go back to Robert Kiyosaki, the cash flow, like how is that how do you think about that now?
I listen to a lot of your podcasts. I've heard a lot of these guys, some of these tech guys or other industries where cash is maybe a little bit more accessible. I've heard about, as a developer, you don't feel like you have any money until you stop developing, right? It takes so much cash to do what we do.
Yeah.
So I think when you think about money, there's a few different ways to look at it. There's actual cash, liquidity. There's equity in the properties that we're investing in. And then there's debt. That's all money, right?
Yeah.
And they all serve a purpose. So we need a lot of cash in our business, like we mentioned earlier, to pay for all these upfront costs. An apartment deal might cost us $500,000 before we even get a construction loan in place. That's out-of-pocket cash. And like we mentioned, I'm not going to go to the investors and say, you guys participate in this until I know this is a deal.
Right.
So that's a lot of burden on us. So we have to keep a bunch of cash in the company, and that just rolls. And as soon as the project starts, we can reimburse it, refill that bucket, start doing more deals.
Yeah.
So I look at cash. We don't take a lot of cash home. We haven't yet. I can tell my wife that we're wealthy. I promise you, somewhere on paper, there's some wealth here.
Yeah.
But we live a pretty modest life. I mean, it's comfortable for sure.
Sure.
But we don't go overboard with our lifestyle.
Sure.
Because everything goes back into the next deal.
Yeah.
Take a salary. I've got some other investments now that we're kicking off some stuff personally, which helps with lifestyle. But from a company's perspective, it's all rolled back in.
Yeah.
And then what we really want to do is there's some tax strategies with this as well, right? If we're taking cash out, we're going to get nailed with taxes.
Right.
So if we leave it into projects, then we can defer some of that to later times.
Yeah.
And that helps build wealth quicker as well. So as far as cash or money, like as a personally, it doesn't really exist. It hasn't really changed my life yet,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what will become of all this, because at some point the net worth just keeps growing, but it has to, because you try to get a loan. If you're trying to go finance a $75 million project, you want a $50 million loan, they're going to look at you and say, what's your liquidity?
Mm-hmm.
What's your net worth? Can you cover this?
Right.
And so I have to build this paper value, paper worth, right?
Yeah.
So I can keep everything going.
Right.
So that's where I'm looking at money right now. It's high growth.
Yep.
It's building up my balance sheet, so I'm more financeable.
Mm-hmm.
Take some of the pressure off of our investors, as I can take a lot more of the risk and personal liabilities on these deals, which ends up trading for more equity in our project. So more risk, we get a little bit bigger piece of the deal, and that grows and grows. But
makes
at
sense.
some point, there'll be money. I don't know if it's for my kids or where it goes, but we live certainly comfortable enough, and I don't need to have the latest and greatest and nicest, and it just doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, and you guys are, I mean, relatively new, right? 8 years in. I mean, when you compare yourselves to some of the other groups that have been around, the Boyers and the Wadsworth, you guys are really just kind of getting started. So it's exciting. It sounds like you're on an awesome trajectory and great path, and I think that you nailed it, right? The name of the game is well, in real estate, it's tough to have that liquidity. It's all on equity. It's on the balance sheet. Are you and Steve able, I'm curious, to guarantee loans now between you two, or have you had to rely on investors or partners to be able to sign on loans to date?
Yeah, we're at a point where we can take the majority of all the deals as the only guarantors.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like that's a huge stepping stone to be able to get to that point. Yeah. And until you can do that, you're obviously relying on others to do so. But well, cool. We can wrap up here, Chaz. Last question, just in terms of general advice. We've talked a little bit about this, but for somebody who wants to start a business, get into development or real estate, whatever it may be, but just what general advice would you have to an entrepreneur who wants to do something on his own?
Well, I would say, once you absolutely know this is the path for you, and it's not for everybody, right? But for me, it was something deep within me. I knew that I had to scratch this itch that I couldn't do unless I tried it myself, right? So no matter what other opportunities came my way, I had to know can I start my own business and run it successfully? And I think the best decision that I made personally is I found a really good partner who could run this journey with me. I think it'd be super lonely to be by myself with all of this burden on my shoulders. It's nice to have someone that's a peer to you, that if you have an issue, you go and you can just be super honest and expose everything and say, what do we do about this? And he's equally aligned to say, here's some advice that affects him, affects me, affects all of the people that we're working for. So Steve's been a huge blessing. Even when we do have successes, you can't like go to your friends and just start bragging about how cool that deal turned out, because no one wants to hear that. But he and I kind of privately can give a high five and relish in that victory, which you need to do, because development takes so long. You've got to celebrate those little victories, because you never quite feel like you've made it right in a deal.
Right. You
just get to the next level. Now you got to worry with this issue, and now you're managing all these tenants and like refinancing. There's always something. So enjoy the little victories when they come, and it's great to have a partner that I can do that with. And then secondly, this is something that Steve and I talked a lot about when we started Thrive. We had to completely cut off ties with our previous employer. We had to go in there and resign, cut off the paycheck to make sure that we were all in on building this new company. One, because it's not fair to the previous employer to be trying to work both sides, right? You can't do that, honestly. I don't know how you would do that unless they're okay with it.
Sure.
So there's a story, and I haven't been able to verify the source or who this is, but there's a fleet of ships that come into a port to go take over to attack this area, the shore, and all the soldiers get off the ship. They come into the shore to take over, and the admiral tells them, you have to burn the ships, right? So there is no retreat. So we used that story a lot. We're going to burn the ships. We're going in. We're going to resign, and we're going all in. There's no falling back. We don't have enough cash to make this work if this doesn't work. And so I'd say if that's the case, if you want to do this, I think it's only fair to the people that you're working with, your investors, your employees, previous employers. Burn those ships and go. Make it happen.
I love it. No better way to end. I love the advice. I think that's so good. But thanks so much for being here, Chaz. Seriously, this was a great one.
Oh, it's always fun to talk to you.
Appreciate the time, man. Really looking forward to your success and seeing you guys grow.
Likewise. Thank you, Chase.
All right. Thank you.